We've been reflecting for the last 4 weeks on the theme of waiting during Advent. And in week 1, we talked about how some of the gifts that we acquired through waiting, that the first week we learned how difficult waiting is and how we are so impatient, and that patience is one of the potential gifts that having to wait can confer to us. Second week, we talked about how waiting puts us, if we are willing, in the present moment. Not living in the past, not looking so far down in the future, desiring something different, but learning to live right in the moment in which we currently reside, to discover what God has for us in that moment. Last week, we talked about how waiting teaches us the humility of powerlessness. Because so often when we wait, it's because we can't make happen what we want to happen. We can't acquire all ourselves what we want to acquire. We can't get rid of something we're trying to get rid of by ourselves. And that in that powerlessness, we learn the humility of being able to say, I can't, but you perhaps, God, can for me. Today I want to talk about waiting as what we do as we are finding our place in the great drama of salvation. We wait, trying to find our place in the big picture of what God is about. Out of my childhood church, Trinity Presbyterian in Tucson, Arizona, there are probably 3 sermons that I take from that entire childhood that have just stuck with me. And one of them was a sermon that the pastor John Davies gave during Advent one year, and he was telling the story about a Christmas pageant. And in this pageant, there was going to be the great tableau at the end, and the angels and the shepherds were going to be lined up, angel, shepherd, angel, shepherd, angel, shepherd, just like that, in a beautiful array of cute little kids dressed up, right? Well, Billy was one of the kids in this group, and Billy was kind of the Dennis the Menace of the crowd. He was always a little on the Avenida side. He was always a little insistent and hard to control, and he had a little bit of a mouth on him. And so Billy was a shepherd that year. And Billy had really done a remarkably good job participating in the pageant rehearsals. And they come to the dress rehearsal, and they got everything set up, and they realized that the kids were having a hard time finding their spot. And so they put circles where every angel was supposed to be, and X's where every shepherd was supposed to be. And they said, just find an X or find a circle, and you'll be good. You know, that'll make sure we're angel, shepherd, the way we want it to look. So comes the Christmas pageant night, and they come to the end of the thing, and everybody's, out there walking out, and all the angels go out first, and they've stood on all of the circles. And that was a great thing to put those marks down, but they did not do it when the angels had their big flowing robes on. And so once the angels all got into place, you couldn't see the X's anymore. And so the shepherds came out, and they're all kind of going around the angels and looking up under their dresses, trying to find the X that they're supposed to land on. And Billy's the last one, and he can't. All the other shepherds have found a place, and Billy's wandering around and picking up the angels' dresses. Finally, the director says, "Billy, what are you doing?" And he looked up and he said, "With all the damn angels in here, I can't find my place." Sometimes that's how we feel, isn't it? You just can't find your place. All these do-gooders all around, and I can't find my place. I can't find my place in the church. Somebody else is all doing everything, or I don't know where I'm supposed to be. We feel that way in the church. Sometimes we feel that way in our families. Sometimes we feel that way at school. We're trying to find our place in the great drama of God's work in the world. Today we're looking at Elizabeth and Mary, 2 women who, to look at them, one would think they had very little place. Elizabeth was advanced in age. In our language, probably menopausal, right? Most people would have considered her barren, never going to have a child, kind of like Abraham and Sarah, who we talked about just a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, 1 week ago. But Elizabeth, by the grace of God, is given the gift of a child. And the woman who was on the margins is invited to take a new place in the drama of salvation. She becomes the mother of John the Baptist, the one who prepares the way. Mary, similarly, young, adolescent, not a very powerful, important, significant person in her world, and is invited to bear a pregnancy that will immediately embarrass her family. In fact, it's possible that's why she went to visit Elizabeth. It's because of the embarrassment to the family of her being pregnant. Mary's invited to take a place in a salvation drama that God is working on for all humanity. But what's very interesting about both of them is that unlike the Christmas pageants that we create, where everybody has a specific role and the lines are all known and the parts are all understood, and the outcome is always predictable, the drama of salvation is very unpredictable, very unscripted. You know, there are those who say regularly today, God has a plan for your life. And part of what I kind of grate against in that is this idea that God has a plan that means every single little detail is spelled out. Because the truth is, if I look at Mary and Elizabeth and the experience that they had being invited into God's drama, God's plan, there was a whole lot that they never expected. I'm dead sure that Elizabeth had no idea that her son John was going to grow up and leave the family and go out into the Essene desert and live as a cloistered member of that community for years, only to come back and live in the desert, wandering around half naked, eating insects for his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and announcing the good news of a coming Messiah, only to have his head cut off by the king. That's not exactly what you want for your kid, to have him decapitated by the powers that be. Mary, of course, had no concept of what was coming. The song that Isabel's going to sing a little bit, Mary, Did You Know?, is hauntingly beautiful because it carries that sense that there is this incredible thing unfolding that Mary can't possibly comprehend as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. And yet she's been invited in to be a part of it. We don't know. It's not so much that God has a plan for our life as that God invites us to join a journey which we will walk together. God invites us to join a journey that we will walk together. I think about families in this church who were invited to bear a child, who never, ever, ever would have imagined the kind of suffering that would be part of that journey. The pain of loss, the disaster of accidents, the horror of illness. We just don't know. We don't know. And to pretend we do is really to lie. What we do know is that when God invites us, God will walk with us. My friends from Latin America have a phrase. They say, we make our way by walking. Hacemos el camino caminando. We make our way by walking. Just to say, it's not a plotted out destination. There's not a map that you follow and you know you're always on the right road. You got to figure it out as you go along, and you do that together with the people who are part of your life, and you do that together with God. You find your place. It's kind of like, in a little bit, it's like coming into a new family as a fiance or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And you're coming into a family that's already there, that's already established, and everybody's kind of figured out what their place is in the family, right? And you come in and you're this new thing. And you don't know exactly who you're gonna connect with, who you're not gonna connect with, who's gonna reject you, who's gonna embrace you, who's gonna love you and support you, who's gonna turn their back on you. You don't know any of that. You walk into it and you make your way by walking, hopefully with your partner by your side, right? I think that's a better image for me of what God does with us than the idea that God has a play that we have a role in that's all scripted out. Because that's not how I live it. And I don't know about you, but it's not a script. It's a journey. There's another favorite Christmas pageant story of mine, and it's the story called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which many of you may have read or written or watched on TV. There's a TV version of it now. And it is a story of a Christmas pageant that went utterly off script. Because the Herdman kids, who are like the terrors of the local elementary school, find out there's going to be a play and that you get to have snacks and food every time you come to rehearsal. And they're a poor family, a single parent family. They're really struggling, and the kids are very undisciplined. They have very little supervision over them, and they just are kind of a wreck. And they force their way into this Christmas pageant at the local congregation. Kind of like some of those people force themselves into line in the parking lot, right? To get in. That's how the Herdmans got into the Christmas play. And their presence there utterly destroyed. My cough drop went down my throat all of a sudden. Utterly destroys the script. Utterly destroys the script. Because all the kids who've been raised in the church, they know the story. They know what's supposed to happen, who's supposed to do what. And the Herdmans have never heard the story before in their lives. And so they're asking questions like, well, why a donkey? Why does she have to travel when she's pregnant? That doesn't sound like any fun. And why wouldn't they give them a place at the end? That's ridiculous. And so they're asking questions all the time, pushing the limits of the kids and the leaders' understanding. And what happens as they get off script is that everyone involved discovers a deeper and more powerful meaning to the story than they ever would have experienced if they had stayed on script. Both the Herdmans and all the other kids who have done this many times before. It's when they get outside the script, when the Herdmans show up as three kings, not bearing gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but the ham that they had been given as a poor family to give to the baby Jesus, that they gave away their Christmas dinner to the baby Jesus. And in doing so, they make all of us ask, what are we really giving to the baby Jesus that's worth that? God doesn't invite us to play a role in a scripted play. God invites us to go off script and discover a journey that raises questions and challenges our understanding and forces us to think and requires of us trust and faith and hope and love. And that, I think, is the place we're waiting for. We're waiting to be invited unfortunately, because many of us, in wanting to know what our place is, we're looking for a scripted slot. We miss the invitation. When the invitation is just to make your way walking together with God and with these folks that God has surrounded you. And the next step on that journey is one you have to take right here. It's not going to be a step you take somewhere else. The next step on that journey is a step that you'll take right here in this place with these people, with your family. It's a step that will require faith, hope, love, trust. So, as we journey as a church, we need to think about moving off script a little bit. You know, the folks who are observing the church these days say that the church of the 21st century is probably going to be more like the church of the first century. A church that had no idea what it was doing. A church that had to figure it out as they went along. Because the culture has shifted so. The denominational structures that we grew up in, that Reverend Brown built this church in, all those structures are falling apart as we speak. All of those expected norms and patterns and scripts for how church does what it does, all of that is shifting radically today. And the folks who are going to make it as church into the next 100 years are not going to be the ones who are still trying to live the script of the last 100 years. They're the ones who are going to be willing to say, oh, this is a journey, not a play. The roles have changed. The lines are different. The expectations are unsure. But the God who walks with us has not left. So let's hold on tight. Let's pay attention. And let's walk together and make our road. I think that's what God's calling us to. And I think we've got that capacity to get off script and to discover the path that God has invited us to journey together. Let's pray. Amoroso Dios, gracias por la oportunidad de caminar juntos contigo. Ayúdanos, como María y Elizabeth, a decir sí a tu invitación, aunque no sabemos ni tenemos idea todo lo que vendrá. Danos el valor de poder decir nuestro sí, como personas y como iglesia, al camino que juntos caminaremos. Por Cristo te lo pedimos. Amén.